Welcome to Mad About Money. I'm Maddie Alexander-Grout, and this is the podcast where we talk to interesting people all about their interesting money stories. I am joined today by the ridiculously inspiring Sharron Moffatt, who is a mental health trainer, cancer awareness speaker, future author. We're going to talk a bit about this future book because her title for the future book is just cracking. And just an all-round amazing LinkedIn legend that I've been following for a really long time. Sharon, it's an absolute pleasure to have you, my love. Tell us a bit about you.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Tell you a little bit about me. Where do you want me to start? Well, I'm 49. Don't tell anyone. Anyone that's listening, keep it a secret. So I'm 49. I am a mental health trainer, so I teach mental health first aid via MHFA England, suicide prevention, and I also talk about cancer in the workplace. So I raise awareness on the importance of having policies in place and making employees aware of not only how to look for the signs themselves, but also how they could support any colleagues with cancer. But before all of that, I was a personal trainer for about 30 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I ran my own business. I was self-employed for 30 years and did really well. I was doing really well in it. And I loved my job. I absolutely loved it. I took it very seriously. Many clients I'm still really close to, you build bonds with people, right? So yeah. I still have really great connections with many previous clients. And as you can hear, probably anyone listening in the background, the other thing I do is I adopt senior dogs. So Rudy, who I've had since January, who's 9 and never lived in a home, is currently making a racket in the background. So it's not me, it's him.
Amazing. Oh, I love it. So Sharon, one of the reasons why I think I've been following you, I reckon about 4 years, just enjoying your mental health content. And then all of a sudden it was like, fuck, Sharon's just put a post up saying she's got cancer.
Yeah, I know.
Wow. I mean, first of all, that is probably the worst news that anybody can ever get ever. Tell us a bit about what happened.
Yeah, so it's really weird because is it the worst? You think it's going to be the worst news, but actually it's not the worst news, but
true.
You deal with things differently. And, my mental health history is not a good one, right? I live with a mental health condition. I've struggled a lot in my life. I've had a few crises in my life where I've had the mental health team locally supporting me. But actually, I'm doing all right mentally, which is really strange because you think when something catastrophic happens, you crumble. But actually, I'm feeling really strong mentally and physically. I'm doing okay. So to give you a little bit of context, my mum had breast cancer 3 times over a 25-year period. And then eventually she had lung cancer, which they think probably metastasized from the breast, which means it had cancer cells from the breast had moved into the lung. And unfortunately, she died nearly 2 years ago, which was heartbreaking for all of us. But my mum always drummed into myself and my 2 sisters to make sure that you check your breast, right? Check your boobs. So I was always aware of that. I was always aware of checking my boobs, not as regularly as you probably should, which is once a month on the same day every month, because your hormones change. So anyway, I was just brushing my teeth in the mirror. I have a mirror in my bathroom right by the sink. So I was just brushing my teeth in the mirror. And while I was brushing my teeth, I just moved my hand onto my boob and just to give it a feel. And I was like, that doesn't feel like it normally feels. I didn't really think anything of it, but I thought, well, I'm 49. I'll see if I can get a mammogram, which I did. And I had a biopsy And then I had another type of mammogram, which is slightly different, and an ultrasound. And they said, yeah, you've got breast cancer. And initially I thought, well, I won't tell anyone. I'll probably have radiotherapy and a lumpectomy, which is what my mum had the first time. And I thought, well, that's all right. I can keep that secret. I'll be all right. But then I had a CT scan, and that's when I discovered actually that I have 3 lumps in my breast, and they're pretty big. So then I was, and the type of breast cancer I have, which we can talk about in a minute. But so then I found out my treatment plan, and I was like, oh, I don't think I can actually get away with keeping this a secret. So that's kind of led me to talking about it online for various reasons. And one of them, pretty selfish really, is I kept my mental health issues a secret for over 30 years. I told nobody outside my family that I had a mental health condition. I never spoke about my struggles. I hid it. And for anybody listening who's ever hidden anything that they've struggled with, not only the deep shame that leads you to hiding it, but also the worry of people finding out, what would people think, all of that, plus masking it, you don't realise the burden that is until it's lifted. And once I started speaking about my mental health issues, it was such an unwelcomed relief that I thought, if I keep my cancer a secret, I'm probably going to go down the same road I did with mental health, which is it's going to make me ill. So I thought, and where's the shame, right? Why should I feel ashamed of it? You know, why should I? So I started talking about it. And because I've always been doing talks about cancer awareness in the background, but I never really spoke about it on LinkedIn. But nobody really talks about it. And I'm like, here I am talking about it. And hopefully it will educate people, but also encourage people to check their boobs and check their bits, or check their cherries, as I like to call it politely.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
We're gonna talk a bit more about how people can check and like what goes into that. But first of all, I'm going to ask you the question that I ask everybody that comes on this podcast. What is your money story?
Well, my money story is a tough one. And I've never really spoken about this on a podcast. I've never really spoken about it, but I'm happy to do so. So I had a very humble upbringing, 2 parents that worked really hard. We didn't have any money growing up, and we didn't need it. We were very happy children until we probably got to teenage years, and we couldn't really keep up with our friends. I think we've probably noticed it then. But, you know, money's never been a massive inspiration for me. As long as I can pay my bills and I've got a roof over my head, I'm doing all right. So if you can afford a holiday, fantastic. But I've never been inspired to be financially rich, right? So in my 20s, I grew my PT business, was doing really well, was earning good money, really good money. And then I went into a huge mental health crisis, probably about 10 years ago. So I was in suicide crisis. So I was actively planning basically to end my life. But I told nobody at work. So I would still show up. I would do lots of short bursts of absenteeism because I didn't have the strength to put that mask on. And obviously in the PT world, people rely on you. So I started losing clients. People started talking about me behind my back, and I really nearly lost my business. But I managed, and during that time, I got into loads of debt, basically to pay my bills, because I wasn't earning the money to pay my bills. I hadn't really saved anything. So I was getting loads of loans purely to pay my outgoings. It wasn't like I was buying a car or going on extravagant holidays. I wasn't. I was purely paying my bills. And I was ringing a lot of online counsellors all over the world, just purely out of desperation. In the middle of the night, I needed to talk to somebody. So I would pay like 60 quid a time to phone these people. And I can remember getting to a point where it was about 3 a.m. and I was trying to dial this number and I had no money left in my bank account. And I remember being so desperate to talk to somebody, I got a payday loan because instantly, just so I could phone this counsellor. So I got into quite serious debt, about 20 grand within about 6 months. I'd say 10 of that went on bills. The other 10 went on ringing these counsellors. I was ringing Australia, New Zealand. I think I spoke to somebody in Tokyo once. I was just desperate. So that's where that was. And then I kind of buried my head in the sand for a very long time. And then now, where I am now is I still have debt. And obviously with having a cancer diagnosis, I'm able to work to the ability that I would like to, or the capacity, I should say. So it's a challenging time for me right now because the support you get as a self-employed person when you have any kind of illness is really minimal. So it's difficult, but I think it will all come together in the end. And this is a period out of my life that I have no control over. So I think there's an element of me there where I feel slightly stronger than I did when I was mentally unwell, because for some reason I always blame myself for that. So so that's kind of where I am. So I don't do credit cards, I don't do loans, I don't do overdrafts, I don't do any of that. I just live within my means. But when it runs out, it runs out, and it runs out pretty quickly when you're not working as much as you A, need to, or B, would like to.
Yeah, and that must be really hard. And I'm assuming that there are other costs involved with having cancer as well. Wigs, for example.
I mean, all of it's expensive, and I think people don't realise the added cost when you have a cancer diagnosis. And wigs, right? You can get a wig on the NHS generally, but they're pretty crap. So because I'm a face-to-face person, I'm a speaker, I didn't want people, if I'm talking about a topic, I didn't want people to be focusing on the head tilt.
Your shit hairdo.
Or, the head tilt, oh, I feel sorry for you, you're going through chemotherapy. I wanted them to focus on what I'm saying. So, I did pay for a wig, but it's the extra added cost. And on average, actually, somebody with cancer spends an extra £500 a month just on things with their diagnosis. So things like petrol. So my hospital's 30 minutes away. Some weeks I'm there 3 times a week. That's petrol. That's cost. Parking, I generally get that free at the hospital for chemotherapy. But everything else I end up paying for, which is not cheap. Depending on which hospital somebody's at, just depends on what they offer. Most will offer free hospital fees if you are a regular patient. So there's that. There's things that you need to buy that you can't get on prescription. So things like hats to keep your head warm. When you've got no hair, you get quite cold at night. So like hats, head scarves. You have to use different creams generally on chemotherapy because your skin gets really sensitive. So they're kind of pharmaceutical creams. We're not talking Clarins here. So you have to pay for that. Sometimes you just, things like toothpaste, you have to use a different toothpaste, different mouthwash, different deodorant. It all adds up. And actually, you think £500, that sounds a lot, but trust me, it's not when you're going through cancer treatment. It goes so quickly. Diet, it's although generally it's, don't believe the hype, everybody, about what diets to eat, but you do need to eat more protein. That's it. Protein's expensive. Some foods you can't eat because they taste disgusting or your mouth is so sore. And it's important that you feed your body nutrition. So all of that adds up. So the extra cost is something that when you're not working to the capacity you'd like or financially need to, this makes it quite tough. And I think I'm in a position where when my mum died, she left us all a small amount of money, tiny, but it breaks my heart that I'm tapping into that just to pay my bills. I'm like using my parents' life savings, which wasn't a lot, but it was something, and something that we are proud of our parents to have achieved. And I'm using it to pay bills, and that breaks me.
Sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah, but that's the thing that I really struggle with, because I think I could put that into my business. I could maybe, do something better with it. But you have to live in the moment, don't you? And you have to do what you need to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you seem incredibly positive online, and it's bloody inspiring. Like every time I see your happy smiley face, I think, bloody hell, this woman is absolutely incredible. How do you stay so positive, especially when you've suffered in the past with mental health?
Yeah, I don't. It's impossible for anyone to be positive all the time. I will say that.
Absolutely.
But I am incredibly. I don't see myself so much as positive, but I definitely see myself as hopeful. And I think this is a period of my life that hopefully won't be forever. The odds of someone getting cancer are high. It just so happens that it's me. And I think as much as everybody will criticize things like the NHS, we are so lucky we are lucky to have them. Really lucky. And when it comes to serious issues such as cancer, once you've been diagnosed, I think you get treatment that's amazing. And and when my mum had breast cancer the second time, she was treated privately, and she still had the same room. She stayed in hospital in the same room. She had the same consultant, the same surgeon. Everything was the same. So I feel very blessed. And of course, people have bad days, or there may be mistakes. And yes, mistakes can be catastrophic in the NHS, but everybody's human, and I think we're lucky to have them. So I feel very privileged to have that. And I also feel this is a period in my life that will make me stronger, whatever the outcomes. And I just think, how lucky am I that I have great family around me. I have incredible friends. I've got this most adorable dog that keeps me grounded and focused. And as much as I'm not earning money financially very much, really,
especially when you write your book.
I'm helping. So when I write my book one day,
let's talk about the title of this book, because the title of this book is just incredible.
Well, somebody said to me, you should write a book. And I said, what do I call it? And I went, I know, jokingly, I'll call it 50 Bald and Boobless. And they said, that's a brilliant title. And I went, do you know what? If I ever wrote a book, I would call it that, 50 Bald and Boobless.
It's not going to be an if, it's going to be a when. So you're, from where I'm standing, so your future very much looks like a book, a TEDx. Is that coming?
Well, no, but it is on the cards, and I have been speaking to a few people about a TEDx, but you still, to get on TEDx isn't easy. You have to fill out the application and apply when the application comes up. So it's basically a case of keeping an eye on it. But yeah, I would absolutely love to do I think everyone would love to do a TEDx, but
I'm desperate to do one, but no one's asked me yet. So I mean, I've applied, but I've applied 3 times and nobody comes back to you. It's rude.
Yeah, so I think there's an element. I do wonder if, I don't know this to be true, but I do think there's an element of, like all things in life, sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. But I wonder, I don't know, but I really want to do a TED Talks about the realities of cancer, really. But the education of it would be, don't judge a book by its cover, because one of the things people always say to me is, you don't look like you've got cancer. And I'm like,
do you know what? That pisses me off.
What's cancer meant to look like? Bald, no eyelashes, really skinny, looking pale. and miserable. And actually, that most people, well, if you went onto my chemo ward, most people don't look like that. They look like me.
So did you lose your eyelashes and your eyebrows?
I've lost everything. I've lost my hair up my nose. So my nose is really sore all the time.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah. So you lose everything. Apart from, even, you know, every cloud though, right? You lose the hairs on your chin.
I've only got one, Bernard, his name is.
I've got one here, and it's like, he better disappear. He has.
Amazing. Like, no, Bernard, me and Bernard have been friends for years. He's like my thinking hair. I think the more I think, the more he grows because I stimulate him. It's a weird one.
Well, I mean, it's a reality that every woman, once you get older, you get hair on your chin. Every woman. And I remember my mum saying to me, whatever happens, no matter how ill I get, when I approach end of life, because she knew she was in end of life care, she was 82. She said, whatever you do not let me be in a bed with hair on my chin. And I thought, you know what, we won't do that. So my mum's lying there on a drip of morphine, and we've got those buzzers getting rid of the chins on our hair. But yeah, it's true. It's true. We all get chins on our hair, and nobody wants them. Well, most people don't. So yeah, if anything happens to me, bring your defuzzer.
So what's the most surprising thing? The thing that you didn't know that's kind of happened?
The side effects wise, do you mean?
Just anything,
I tell you one thing that I think has given me a lot of strength is, I could probably cry about it now, and it sounds so cheesy. It really sounds cheesy, but I'll say it anyway, is I didn't realise how loved I was.
Yeah.
And I think if you knew my history, that would make sense to you. But I grew up never feeling like I could measure up. I never felt good enough, ever. Even up until my last crisis, one of my biggest issues was my inner voice. I thought, you're never good enough. It's never enough. You are never enough. Whatever happened, it was just, and it was such a strong belief, because a belief is only a thought you keep thinking, right? So if you keep thinking it enough, you believe it. And it made me so ill. And I used to think, God, everyone boring. Everyone's like, oh, God, Sharon and her mental health. Oh, Sharon's not well again. I felt like a burden on my family. I used to feel quite insecure after I'd meet people and be like, oh God, they think I'm a complete plonker. And what being diagnosed with cancer has really shown me is how genuinely people actually do really care. And I've been lucky, you know, my family are amazing, and my friends have really measured up. And it's not that I didn't expect them to, I just thought, why would they want to, if that makes sense? So that's probably been the thing that's given me the most strength, and the thing I didn't really probably subconsciously expect. Yeah.
That's actually a really good positive to pull from such a shitty situation.
I mean, you do feel like, oh God, you know, like so for example, because financially I'm not really earning that much money, every time I go out, everybody else pays.
Nice.
And it's really generous of them, but I struggle with that because I'm not used to it. B, I'm a very independent woman. I'm used to, I'm not somebody that accepts I don't, but it's difficult to accept support financially, isn't it, from people? But they're like, look, we want to do it. We feel like we can't do anything else. And, you know, and I think, how bloody lucky am I? Because otherwise I wouldn't be meeting them for breakfast, and I wouldn't be, I would be like, oh, I'll just have a coffee. And they're like, no, you won't. We're paying for breakfast. And I'm like, so you have to kind of sometimes accept people's kindness. You've probably
stepped up for them before, though.
Well, I think it swings and roundabouts. I hope so. And I don't know how I'll ever repay people for their generosity. I don't just mean financially, but the support that I received from my friends and family. I don't know how I'll ever be able to repay them, and I really hope that they know how grateful I am.
Well, they will when they listen to this podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
They
They need to listen in and say, oh, you're so cheesy, Sharon, but it's true.
No, it's lovely. It's really nice. And actually they'll probably appreciate the fact that, you've come on and spoken about it. Let's talk a bit about cancer awareness in the workplace, because I think this is something that people don't realise that they need support with it, because often they don't realise that their people have got cancer. B, they don't think about what are they going to do if somebody does get cancer, so they don't think ahead, and there's that planning gap there, isn't there?
Yeah.
What can people do?
Well, there's lots of things that need to be done. So as an organisation, so cancer, if you're diagnosed with cancer, that is classified as a disability.
Yeah.
So you are protected under the Equality Act of 2010. So you're protected against that because you have a disability, right? So to protect you from discrimination, unfair treatment, unfair dismissal, but it also protects you post-cancer treatment. So if you've had cancer, it protects you. So there's that in place. But, I speak to many organisations and ask them, do you have a long-term illness policy? And most of them, less than 30% do statistically. And I'm like, if you look at statistics around long-term illness, not just cancer, at some point, an employee is going to need their help. And you need to have those strategies in place not be like, oh, we don't know what, because every organisation I've spoken to that I've done work with, and I've told them that I'm having cancer treatment, what's your policies? And they're like, well, we've never had anyone with cancer before. And I'm like, well, what do you offer your employees? And they're like, we've never had someone with cancer before. We don't quite know what to do. And it's been me telling them, as a contractor, as somebody that's self-employed. So, that's the first thing. But the other thing I think that all of us have a duty of care to do is to know how to talk about cancer, not just with someone that's being diagnosed, but in general. And what I mean by that is when I was first diagnosed and I told people, and it's human nature to want to ask questions, right? So you get bombarded with questions. Well, how do you know how did you find out? What type of cancer is it? What's your prognosis? I don't even know my prognosis. I've never asked that. I don't know.
You probably don't want to know particularly. It's just fucking get through the next day, right?
Yeah. What's your treatment? What? All these questions. How's your sister? What are you going to do about your dog? What are you going to do about money? How do you're having chemotherapy? Oh my God, that's horrendous, because my dog walker's nan's ex-boyfriend had that and it was horrendous. Rarely did anyone say, I bet that's okay. Yeah, how are you? And I think we forget
that was the first thing that I asked you when I didn't ask you any of those crappy questions.
No, you
I asked
didn't.
You how you were.
I know you did, and it was noted. But so I think asking people, and it sounds like a stupid question because they're like, God, it sounds a silly question to ask, but acknowledge that it's a challenging time. So I bet that must be really hard. How are you? And how we might all say to people, oh, if there's anything you need, you can reach out to me. Realistically, how many times does someone say that and someone's ever reached out? Probably 1% if you're lucky, right?
Yeah.
Don't tell someone that. Say, what do you need? I'm here for you.
What do you need? Yeah, exactly.
Suggest. Say, what do you need? I'm going to do this for you. Because people will be grateful. But if you say, oh, if you need anything, you're never going to reach out. I certainly wouldn't.
It's not specific enough, is it? It's not specific enough.
What do you need? Can you lend me 20 grand?
Do you need driving to the hospital? Do you need somebody to cook you something because you're feeling a bit shit?
Or I'm going to cook you dinner. Don't even ask, do you? I'm cooking dinner tonight. I'm going to bring some round for you. Do you need? I mean, I don't have children, but I'll take the kids to school next week for you to give you a break.
Yeah,
just little things. And I'm quite self-sufficient, right? So I live on my own. I'm okay. I have support. Like my sister will make food if she's cooking, for example. And, I'll have my friend who lives up the road, she's like, oh, I've got some extra. I'm dropping it off. And things like that make a real difference, because trust me, when you're feeling awful from chemo and your mouth is red raw and your lips are swollen because they're covered in sores, which has happened to me on the chemotherapy I'm on now.
Yeah.
And someone says, I've made you some soup. It's like, okay, I don't really fancy eating, but I know I need to, and that I can eat that. It makes a real difference. But I think because I hide away a lot, not intentionally, but when I'm really struggling with the side effects from chemo, I don't really talk about it to my friends because I don't want to burden them. I don't talk about it online in detail because everybody's cancer is different. Everybody's journey is different. So me sharing my side effects doesn't mean everyone's going to have those side effects. So, you know, I take that quite seriously. But also, I think people see me as I am today and they think, oh, gosh, you're doing really well. And I think I am doing really well, I think.
Does that help to push you forward a bit, though?
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel either way around it, really. I just, you know, I don't want to be someone that just talks about the negativity, because actually, if you go on any of the cancer awareness forums and mental health forums, by the way, of which there are many, and they can be really helpful, it's not hard to find the horrible stuff. And, you know, if someone puts on there, like I went on there and said, you know, my mouth is so painful, can anyone recommend anything other than this? And you get loads of people giving you suggestions, but also loads of people saying, I had that, it was horrendous, it lasts for 6 weeks and you're going to have that every, you know, and I think that's not helpful. What's helpful for me is to know, what can I do today to make it a bit easier? So, you know, I think there's that element. And if I had £1 for every person that has told me what I need to do to get rid of my cancer, I'd be a millionaire. I'm not joking.
Do you get people like trying to sell you like lotions and potions and
you get,
supplements?
You're being fooled by the NHS. You need to eat apricot seeds because it cures cancer.
I didn't even know apricots had seeds.
Apricot kernels. Because there was you know, flax seeds is the latest one, because there was a test done on 10 rats. 10 rats was done.
Oh, good for the rats. Yeah,
where they were given flax seeds, and one of the rats, its tumour shrunk slightly. So suddenly everybody's like, flax seeds cures cancer. No, it doesn't. So I've had apricot kernels, flax seeds, avocado oil, marijuana. You need to get cleansed because I've been repossessed. I'm a witch. Apparently I was a witch in a former life.
Nothing wrong with being a witch. I reckon I was as well, to be fair.
But the apricot kernel thing, the amount of people that have said that to me and like, you know, or, you know, you need to do this because it cures cancer. I hate to break it to everyone. There's no such thing as a cure for cancer. No medical professional will say you're cured. What they will say is there's no evidence of disease, because there is no way of saying whether cancer will return. They can't say that 100% for sure, so they can't tell you you're cured. So I feel quite passionately about stuff like that. I'm a bit over the conspiracy theories.
Have you started your TikTok yet?
No.
You need to. I can see this being so good, like raw and real.
I should really.
And you could call that 50 Bald and Boobless as well.
That would be a good one, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah. I think I just like when the time comes, like influencer status awaits you.
Influencer status. I've got no interest in being an influencer.
Neither did I. But here I am, 40 and influential. No, it's a weird one. But no, I think TikTok would be a really good place for you to talk, because I think the thing is, people need this advice. They need, like, you know, it's not actually just, you know, how do you talk to other people who have got cancer without being an absolute asshole and like monopolizing the whole conversation. But it's also like, you know, how does it affect like the relatives and the friends, and like how do you properly check your boobs?
Yeah, and don't just forget about the person with the cancer.
Yeah.
No, sorry, don't just think about the person with the cancer.
Because it's kind of the whole circle, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And I think I commented this on one of your LinkedIn posts, that like my boobs are always lumpy. Like the amount of times that I've been to the doctors and I think I'm probably wasting their time, I've had 2 mammograms. Luckily, nothing. But apparently, I've just got really fatty boobs,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
Well,
thanks for insulting my breasts.
as you get older, your boobs change, so your breasts will
Yeah.
change, and hormones will also change them, which is why when you do a self-breast examination, you need to do it on the same day every month. So our hormones change, right?
Yeah.
Preferably a week after your period if you still have period. So
The week after.
yeah. So my boobs are quite lumpy. She says, touching it. Thank God no one can see. My boobs have always, well, they're 2 fried eggs really, but my boobs have always been quite lumpy as well. And that has changed as I've got older, because going through the menopause, your tissue can get a bit more kind of granular. So it's about knowing what's normal. So the fact that my boobs have always felt lumpy, that's not a sudden change for me. The fact that one of the lumps was just slightly protruding a bit more than, it just felt much more prominent. I could actually feel it as a single lump rather than lots of different mini lumps, you know.
Yeah.
So knowing what's your normal, what's your usual, is really important. But it's not, you know, it's not unusual to have kind of lumpy boobs, but you need to know what your normal is. And you know what? If you are in any way unsure, go and see a doctor and get a mammogram, because no doctor has ever said, thanks for wasting our time, there's nothing wrong with you, ever, about a mammogram, ever. So there's no harm in getting checked. But what I will say is some women will have what's called dense breast tissue. Now, there's no way of knowing if you've got dense breast tissue just by looking at it, right? So it's not, generally younger women will have dense breasts. As you get older, you lose a lot of breast tissue. You get more fat. You lose a lot of the dense breast tissue anyway.
Especially after kids, they go from like here to
there. So dense breasts, mammograms don't always show up cancerous tumours because the breasts are so dense. So you would often need an ultrasound, and the only way of knowing if you've got breast test is through like a mammogram or an ultrasound or something. So there is that to be aware of. And I think if you're younger, I mean, there is a massive research project going on at the moment with the Christie Hospital, which is a private cancer treatment hospital. And it was set up in memory of, do you remember Sarah Harding from Girls Aloud?
I do indeed, yeah.
And she was 30, I think she was 39 or 35.
Yeah.
She was in her 30s when she died of breast cancer, and it was found very late. And her wish was that there was some way of knowing how which younger women are at more risk of developing breast cancer than not. So the Christie Hospital have just funded this massive research into cancer in younger women, breast cancer in younger women, and the results have been really good. So, you know, like with any tests and research, it doesn't just happen overnight, but if it passes all the tests, it will be rolled out in the NHS. And I think that can be groundbreaking for younger women. Absolutely groundbreaking, because although cancer is relatively rare, you'd like to think in younger people, you know, for example, testicular cancer is the most common type of cancer in men under 35. You know, breast cancer is the most common cancer in women in their 30s. So, you know, you have to be aware of it. So I find it all very fascinating. I love a bit of research. And again, aren't we lucky to have all these great people researching cancer? Because
we are indeed.
Wasn't like this 25 years ago when my mum was treated for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's ever advancing, isn't it? And I think this is the more we talk about it, the more acceptable it is. And I think you are, you know, whether you think you are or not, you are inspiring so many people by talking about it so openly, because not everybody does that. And I think, you know, you are probably not aware of the amount of people that you're probably really helping. So, guys, if you're listening, go and follow Sharon on LinkedIn. She is incredibly inspiring.
Winging it. I'm winging it.
Winging it with fucking style, my love. I think you're doing amazingly. Is there anything that the business community can do to support you with your business? Because I think that's the hard part, isn't it? Really,
I think the business community to support me, I think, is just, acknowledge the importance. Me talking about cancer now was me talking about mental health 10 years ago. People weren't really ready to engage in it. It was like, oh, no one really struggles with their mental health. There were, oh, it's just an excuse. So, all the things that I would have been called when I was younger, attention seeking, that you just need to man
It's
up.
exactly what people say about ADHD now. And
Yeah,
I go fuck
and
themselves.
it's the same. And it's the same with kind of cancer in the workplace now. People are like, oh, it won't happen to me. It doesn't affect my workplace because the demographic's younger. Well, that's bullshit. It does.
Yeah.
I think we're still in its infancy. So although cancer awareness generally has really grown, and there is some amazing, absolutely incredible charities out there supporting people with diagnosis, even if they're worried that they might have cancer, friends and family, is incredible. But when you talk about the workplace, it's so limited and organisations don't want to talk about it. So I think, just being mindful of that and, be aware of what change your policies. But to support me as a business, I don't know really, unless you want to book me for a talk. I'm a very good speaker.
I'll see if I can think of something. I mean, I'm sure there's something that we can do. But you are absolutely smashing it. May you continue to absolutely smash it, or wing it in whatever way you feel,
I like winging.
Fit. Where's the best place for people to follow you?
LinkedIn? So yeah, LinkedIn's the only social media network that I use frequently, really.
Until you start on TikTok, I'm gonna make that happen.
Oh, bless you. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn for the easiest way. And you can find my email address on there so people can contact me.
Amazing. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So it's just wonderful to see how positive you are when you're going through something so shitty, and it's really good to educate people on what it's really like. So I'm really pleased that you came on, and also about how open you've been about the money situation, because it's really difficult talking about money at the best of times,
horrible.
let alone when it's something that's so far out of your control. So it's going to be something that's useful to people for sure. So guys, make sure you go and follow Sharon. If you're not following me as well, Maddie Alexander-Grout on all social media platforms, Mad About Money Official on TikTok. You can also download the Mad About Money app completely free from the app stores. If you are struggling with anything sort of relating to your health, your well-being, and anything to do with your money and your life, really, Mad About Money app is the place for you to be. It's not just boring money talk all the time. We talk about real life, interesting things on a social media platform that is completely and utterly built for people who have got different brains. So, that's it for this week's podcast. Thank you so much, Sharon. We will see you next time.
See you later.